What are you doing, lady? What is that you're stewing? Don't stray far from the hearth place, not while you are brewing.
So hello and welcome to the Witchlit podcast. I'm Wendy Steele, the Riverbank Witch. I'm here with Sheena Cundy, the Treehouse Witch, and we've got a special guest with us today who is DJ Martin, all the way across the pond. So we're going to start off as we normally do with In the Broom Cupboard, just catching up with what's been happening in the last couple of weeks since we saw you last. So Sheena, what have you been up to in the last couple of weeks?
I have been doing a little bit of writing every day, so I'm back on the writing wagon. Not much, but I'm doing a bit. I'm trying to update book one of my Witchlit series because I want to put that out and discount it and make it free for a little while. In other words, I want to use Kindle Unlimited KDP promotional tools, which I didn't do when I first brought it out because I just published it and that was it. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm slowly getting there, but yeah, so I'm updating that book and I'm trying to get those first three books into a box set because that'll be another product. Again, I'm trying to update everything because when you publish an ebook and you've done your back matter, it gets out of date very quickly if you're bringing other books into the series. Because in the back of my book 1 and 2, I've got things like at Beltane book 2 comes out. And in book 2, it's like, at Lammas, so we've got book 3 coming out. And of course, that's all behind us now. That was last year. So that kind of information in your back matter is useless. So I just want to take that out and just, it's a constant sort of rewiring, isn't it, to make things up to date. So that's kind of what I've been doing. That's enough of me. What about you, Wendy? What have you been up to in the broom cupboard?
Well, the last time we spoke, the writing muse had popped in a couple of times for a day visit, but had refused to stay. But on Friday, she turned up and she is still here and I can't stop writing. So I'm happy to say that I hit the 20,000 word mark today. So I'm 20,000 words into a brand new novel, which wasn't the novel I was expecting to write. So I'm writing Lowry's Forest, which will obviously have undertones of witchlit because of who I am, but it's a very different story. So I've given myself the luxury of throwing myself into it this week because my partner's actually working. So I've got some time and I've done an awful lot of work on the land. So I've given my body a bit of a rest. And I've been writing all week, which has been wonderful. I'm thoroughly enjoying that. So let's include our guest in this. So so lovely to have you with us, DJ. So would you like
for having me?
You're very welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and then kind of your background into Witchlit. So the people who watch the podcast are aware that we're Witchlit writers and they know a little bit about it. So it would be lovely to know how you came from your spiritual background and ended up in Witchlit.
Well, I'm probably older than most people that will actually watch this podcast.
Rubbish. Oh, you've got a lovely black cat in the background.
Actually, he's a Russian blue. That was Max. We have 4 at the moment. Wow. His brother is
show up as well.
Yeah, he'll come back. He's a pain in the butt when I'm doing the stuff like this. I have been a witch as long as I can remember. Just didn't know that's what I was because when I was growing up, there was nothing around to tell me. I'm an accountant by training. And so I'm an extremely logical person, as well as being a very stereotypical Virgo. I've written, I went back to school when I was in my late 40s, and got my Master Herbalist degree. And I was on a witch forum, and people there started calling me the Herby Lady, and they said, you ought to put your knowledge out in a book. And I was like, okay. So I wrote my first book, which is more or less a reference, wrote a couple more, and was sitting in my recliner one afternoon, and a short story came into my mind. So I sat here and pounded it out, had my husband read it, and he said, that has the makings of a book. So I figured out how to expand it from about 15,000 words to about 80,000, and that was the beginning of the Witchlet.
Cool. So tell us a bit more about, so you wrote non-fiction first. So
Correct.
Did you publish those yourselves, or did you put them forward to an agent or a publisher to see if anybody was interested?
No, the first one was actually picked up directly by a publisher that was the publisher of a friend of mine. And I really didn't like the fact that I was making about 50 cents on a $20 book. So when I wrote the second one, I started researching and realized I didn't really know that much about the publishing business. So the second book was done through a vanity publisher. And through that, I learned the process and figured out how to do it myself. So the subsequent 5 books have been self-published.
Fabulous. Excellent. So are you still writing both, or is it just fiction now?
It's mostly just fiction. I started researching a book on the history of using herbs. And while I have pages and pages and pages of research, I can't figure out how to make it interesting to anybody but me.
Okay.
So the research is still there. I may eventually figure out how to make it interesting to somebody else, but until then, it's on the back burner. So yeah, right now I'm still writing fiction.
Okay, so are they still coming to you as ideas in the same way, or are you inspired? Basically, it's what I'd like to know what inspires you to write Witchlet. So for instance, for me, it's nature. For me, it's the fact that I can be so close to my river and to the earth, and that's what inspires me to write. So what inspires you to write, do you think?
Well, the protagonist of the first 3 books is an administrative assistant, which is a job I'm extremely familiar with. And her boss is loosely based on my former employer before I became self-employed. Although her boss is an ogre, literally. My former boss was 5'6" if he was lucky. So, there are changes there. The story that I'm working on right now, the protagonist in the first 3 books has a familiar that is currently a cat, but his spirit is actually more than 2,000 years old. So I'm writing his history with all of his various and sundry humans.
Fabulous.
And my inspiration, like I said, I've been an administrative assistant. I know how that stuff works, and I'm just sort of expanding on her role in her job. Fudge, the cat, and I'm going to smack mine in just a second. Fudge the cat, he basically tells his own story. A small piece of it is in the anthology that was put out. When did we put it out, Sheena? Last year?
Oh,
yeah, June last year.
Last solstice.
Yeah, it was about solstice last year.
Yeah.
And so a small piece of his story is in there. But Fudge tells his own.
I'd like to know, DJ, what your creative process looks like. As in, I'm interested in, because you write non-fiction and you write fiction. Mm-hmm. How do you cope with those two balls? Can you write both at the same time, or do you just have to concentrate on one? How does that work with you?
The nonfiction is much easier for me to write because to me it's a logical process.
Yeah.
And I can do that while I'm doing the accounting part too. The fiction, it's harder for me to write because I have to turn off the logical brain.
Yes.
And so I don't write all the time. But when I do, I'm what they call a pantser. I started trying to outline when I was writing the first book and found out that what I had outlined was not what happened. When I started writing, the characters changed the story on me, and it was like, okay. So ever since then, I have more or less been a pantser, and I write what the characters are telling me.
Okay. Whether you can sort of say, oh, fiction in the morning, non-fiction in the afternoon, or the other way around. Can you do that both in?
No, I can't. And I'm self-employed, and I have clients that drive me up a wall. Okay. And if I'm having a bad day with my clients, there is no way I can sit down and write fiction, even though I'm semi-retired, so I only work part-time. And you would think that, okay, I get my client work done in the morning and I should be able to sit down and write, whether it's fiction or non, in the afternoon. Some days my brain just doesn't function that way. And I just have to let the writing part go until whenever I can get back into the mindset again.
Who are your role models? As in authors?
Oh, and authors?
Yeah, past or present, or it doesn't matter. Who do you follow? Who inspires you?
Well, first off, it depends upon my mood, because okay. I'll vary. I think probably my favorite author at the moment is Deborah Harkness. Okay. She wrote the Discovery of Witches trilogy.
Yeah.
Another one of my good friends that I think is a great writer is Deborah Blake. Okay. Yeah, her fiction, I don't follow the same path as she does, so her nonfiction doesn't really speak to me, but I love her fiction. Let's see, there's another one named Elise Kova. She writes, it's fantasy. It's not necessarily witchlit, but it's very good fantasy. She does a great job of world building. I think that's about all I can think of at the moment.
I noticed on your website when I was looking earlier that in your latest book, is that Magical Marvelous?
Herbs Medicinal Magical Marvelous. That's actually the first one.
Yeah. Oh, is it the first one?
It's the very first one, yeah.
It's a great cover, by the way. I love the cover. But I was noticing with the reviews that Judica, is it Illis?
Illis.
Yeah. She's reviewed it, hasn't she? She put a review for you. And I've got one of her books. No, it's not in a treehouse. It's in my office. But the 5,000 spells, it's about that thick, isn't it?
I have a copy, and I gave an extra copy to a girlfriend of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that book.
Sweet.
I love that.
We've been friends almost 10 years now, I think. We met online.
Yeah.
And I emailed her, I cold emailed her asking her for if she would review it, and she did, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And we finally actually got to meet in real life 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And you saying about real life, and Wendy and I are always this comes up in discussion, doesn't it, Wendy? Because Wendy gets out more than I do to these book fairs and things, and it really helps. It works for her. It's definitely on my list, especially after this, when all this madness is over and the lockdown's finished. I want to do more of those, certainly. But you see, in America, you seem to have more of those things going on as well, don't you? You have more sort of writing fairs and conferences, and they call them cons, Cons,
yeah. Which is short for conference. There's all sorts of stuff going on. I don't go to them. I don't do people.
No.
And especially the big ones, Dragon Con, which is in Atlanta, and it's a big fantasy convention every first weekend in September. There are so many people that I would lose my temper and probably hit somebody when they irritated me. But we're also extremely isolated. I live up in the mountains. I'm 2 hours north of the big cities, so I have to drive to go anywhere. Yeah. And it's kind of a pain in the rear end, actually, especially since I love where I live and don't really want to leave.
No, you live in a forest, don't you?
We do.
By forest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wonderful. I mean, that must inspire your writing, mustn't it? To have that kind of environment around you. Do you think?
I don't think it does, simply because, well, I mean, I have a garden and I talk to my plants and they talk back. The fiction, no, she lives in a city.
Oh, okay.
She's very much a city girl.
Okay.
So she draws on my years of living in a city. We didn't move up here until we've been up here almost 16 and a half years. But I lived and grew up in the heart of big cities.
Okay.
I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore, but
what would be your advice for other indie authors at the moment, at this present time? What would be your advice for writers?
Keep on keeping on. It's whether you decide to set yourself a schedule and I'm going to write an hour a day, let's say, or you're like me and you only write when the mood strikes, keep writing. And the other thing I would say is please have somebody at least proofread your self-published book. I read so many books, especially on Kindle Unlimited, that the lack of proofreading actually detracts from the reading itself. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I think that just goes to prove, doesn't it, that really at the end of the day, a good quality product, the presentation of a good quality product is so important. It doesn't matter what format it's in, whether it's ebook, print, audio. If the presentation is as good as you can get it in production, then you don't notice that. When you're reading it or listening to it, you don't notice any of the things because it's seamless. All you're concentrating on is the content. But as you say, if there are typos, if there's formatting issues, if something is glaringly not right, then it detracts you from enjoying the content, doesn't it? Because it's just yeah.
There are authors who have actually lost sales. They may have more than one book out, but because the first book is so bad, I won't read the second or third or whatever. It's like, because I expect it to be more of the same. Yeah. And that loses sales.
Yeah.
And you're actually looking for more people than just your friends and family to read the book.
Yeah. And that leads me on to the marketing side of things. How do you have a plan? Or do you have certain strategies that you stick to? Or do you just kind of...
No, this is another one of by the seat of my pants. Okay. Selling is not my strong point in any way, shape, or form. I tried hiring a publicist for, I think we had about a 6-month contract, and didn't really see any tick up in sales. So I thought, well, I'm one of the lucky ones in that I basically write for myself. Okay. And if I sell books, I'm thrilled, but I don't require that income to eat. Okay. And so if I sell books, great. And I do make every effort to put out a polished product. I have a professional cover designer. I have a professional editor. And my books have actually all earned out based on, what I put out to put them out. So I think that's good. I'm making money now. But I just can't figure out how to go out and sell. So I do the Book Quote Wednesday on Twitter when I have time. when my accounting clients aren't driving me crazy. And I'll mention them every now and again, but apart from that, I really don't do a lot of marketing.
Okay.
So do you think that your continued sales are through word of mouth then? People who have already read the books and enjoyed them saying to someone else, oh, you ought to read this, it's a really good book. Do you think that that's more prolific for you?
It helps. It helps. What would really help, I understand that if you get 50 reviews on Amazon, when somebody looks at another book, it'll get people who read this book also read this one. And so if I could get up to 50 reviews on one of my books, that would be cool. They're on Goodreads, and I know that I've gotten good reviews on Goodreads. So they'll eventually get found one way or another. I mean, maybe my ear will make a lot of money. I don't know.
Do you have an email list, DJ?
Do I have any what?
Email list.
Yes, I have. I do a newsletter every 4 years.
I signed up to your newsletter today.
Yeah, it's 4 times a year at the equinoxes and solstices, and that's the only time I'm going to bother anybody because I don't like to be inundated with a lot of stuff. So yeah, I do have an email. There's a freebie on my website, and then I put a story in the Witchlit anthology. So I'm doing some things, just not a lot.
But my one last question to you is, how are you coping with this current sort of global crisis at the moment? How is that affecting your writing, and your kind of personal, not too much your personal life, but obviously our personal lives do affect our writing, don't they? So that you can't separate them, can you really? But how is it affecting you and what you're doing with your books?
It hasn't really affected me that much. I've been working from home for almost 30 years, and I only leave home once a week. I drive the 2 hours into Atlanta, and normally I would see clients and pick up all the work that I need to do and then bring it up here and deal with it then. Now I'm not seeing clients. I have one couple that I work with that live in a retirement community, and they are literally locked into the community. If they leave, they get evicted, which is really sad. So I've been doing their grocery shopping for them and dropping it off and not seeing other people and coming home. And to me, because my wedding was planned around this couple's schedule so that they could be there. And they're a couple of my best friends. And not being able to see them is very hard. I'm a huggy type person with my friends and, all that. And so that has affected me somewhat. As far as actually working, no, it hasn't, because none of that has really changed. I'm still, I think what do they call it? Collective anxiety, I think. Just like everybody else, I'm kind of nervous about how all of this is going to eventually play out. And so I'm not quite as calm. Well, I'm not a calm person anyways, but not as calm as I would normally be. So yeah, it has affected my writing because I can't just turn everything off and slip into the world of the book. But I've managed some. I actually finished the first draft of Fudge's story, and now I'm busy revising. Yeah. So I'm doing some writing, but not as much as I would like to.
Yeah. I think that goes for all of us, though. I don't think we should beat ourselves up too much about that.
I don't. I never have. I found a half-sister almost a year ago that I didn't know I had, thanks to DNA and genealogy. Yeah. And we have been video chatting on Facebook Messenger since then. And we talked not last night, but the night before last. And I had actually planned on going to meet her last month. I was going to fly up. She lives in Illinois, and I was going to fly up and physically meet her last month. Well, I can't do that.
Oh.
And so I'm sitting on tenterhooks waiting to be able to do that. I normally go up to Minnesota, where two of my kids and their families are, in June to see them. And I'm not making any plans to do that. And I miss seeing my kids and grandkids. One of my daughters-in-law is pregnant with my 7th grandchild, and I can't see them, even though they're only 2 hours away. It's tough. It really is.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And just seeing the pictures on Facebook isn't enough.
I can see you've got your cards. Are you going to pull a card for DJ?
Yeah. DJ, what we do is our normal. I don't know if you've seen any of our episodes, but it's traditional. We choose a card at the end. So This is a card. So I'm shuffling them. You tell me when to stop, and this will be to do with your writing, and your witch lip.
Okay.
So, okay. Where do you want me to pull from? The top or the bottom or middle or?
Shuffle them one more time and then take the one off the top.
Okay.
Oh,
Good.
cool.
Blessings.
Ladybird. I
like
love Ladybird. Ladybird's all about gratitude and being grateful for what we've got.
Which I am. Yeah,
I'm sure you are. Even though you're missing all your family and your friends and like you say, those things on the calendar that might not be happening yet. I think we've got to remember that, it's not going to be forever. That eventually we're going to be with our loved ones again. And do ladybirds have any kind of significance for you, DJ? What do you think about that?
First off, I don't read cards. I read runes. So there's a difference.
Yeah.
Ladybirds, to me, we have Asian lady beetles here, and they invade our house usually about the middle of October and finally leave about the end of February. And I will have literally thousands of them in, around the edges, the windows and the doors and stuff. And because they give off a noxious taste, the cats won't even play with them. So to me, I love what we call ladybugs, what you would call ladybirds, just the regular ones, because I think they're so helpful. Yeah. These guys irritate me.
Yeah.
Because I spend a little bit every day sweeping up dead bugs.
Okay. Well, that's a lovely card. Wendy, do you want a card before we finish?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay.
I'll have mine off the bottom, please.
Bottom?
Yeah.
A fox.
Oh.
Fox. I can't read what it says. Oh, craftiness. Ooh, Wendy.
That's you getting back into your craft, your writing craft. Yes.
I've been knitting prolifically as well because we've got these new babies coming. So I've actually got the baby patterns out and I've been knitting prolifically as well. So maybe it's got something to do with that too. But yeah, back in my writing craft, definitely. Really feeling it as well.
Yeah. And Fox is all about being, having that shrewd kind of perception and keeping our cards close to our chest. So maybe don't talk too much about your current work in progress, because it sounds like you're in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What normally you would say, don't jinx it.
No, that's right. Don't tell us too much about it. Sorry, there I go, asking you a question about it.
I can tell you what it's called, which doesn't happen all the time with my books, because quite often I don't know the title till halfway through, but it's still gonna retain the name of the short story that it originated from, and it's gonna be called Lowry's Forest.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Lovely, yeah, we'll look forward to that. Well, I think we can round up now, ladies, can't we?
Okay.
So thank you very much for joining us, DJ. And if anybody wants to find you online, where can they find you in your writing, in your books?
Everything is author DJ Martin, whether it's authordjmartin.com. On Facebook, I'm author DJ Martin. On Twitter, I'm author DJ Martin. I tried to keep everything easy and consistent. Good. Mostly so I could remember.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for joining us all the way from America, Georgia, and we wish you good luck with the rest of your day, because you're in the morning, aren't you? We're kind of coming to the end of our day.
Yeah, we're just coming up on noon here. I'm 5 hours behind you.
Yeah. Well, have a great day.
You too.
And we'll see you back in the Witchlit group. Mm-hmm. And thank you for watching and listening, everybody. And we'll see you next time. So it's bye-bye from me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Sit up together, stir the madness round and round. Lady Crow, lend me your feather. By the magic, we are bound. We are bound. By the magic, we are bound.